The hall was alive with warmth, golden lights strung across the ceiling, casting soft shadows that danced against the walls. Laughter and clinking glasses filled the air as music floated from hidden speakers, low enough to encourage conversation but lively enough to keep spirits high. I stood near the cake table, watching as friends and family swirled around the man of the hour, my fiancé, my love, the person I had believed was my safe place. His birthday had always been special to him, and I had made it my mission this year to ensure everything was flawless. I had gone over every detail tirelessly. His favorite chocolate truffle cake, the kind his mother used to make before she passed, was front and center. His favorite wine, imported just for the night, poured into glasses that shimmered under the lights. Even the playlist had been curated carefully, songs that held memories of us, our trips, our late-night drives. I wanted him to feel cherished, celebrated, and surrounded by love. Watching him laugh in the center of the room, his smile wide and carefree, made my heart swell. He looked so happy, and I told myself it was worth every sleepless night of planning. He caught my eyes across the room once and raised his glass, and I returned the gesture with a soft smile. I believed, in that fleeting moment, that we were aligned, that this night would deepen our bond and perhaps move us closer to the wedding we had been postponing. But beneath my joy, a faint unease stirred. It was something I could never quite name but often felt in his silences, in the way his gaze occasionally drifted as though searching for something, or someone, else. I had brushed it aside, telling myself I was overthinking. After all, he had chosen me, hadn't he? He had slipped a ring on my finger, promising a life together. That had to mean something. Then, as the laughter reached its peak, he tapped his glass with a spoon. The clinking sound cut through the chatter, and slowly, voices quieted. All eyes turned to him. He stood with a nervous but excited smile, the kind he usually wore when something important was about to happen. My breath quickened, and my pulse drummed in my ears. I thought maybe he was about to announce our wedding date. Maybe, finally, he was ready to share with everyone what we had been building in private. I stepped forward slightly, anticipation tingling in my chest. But then, his voice rang out, and the name he spoke wasn't mine. It was hers, her, the name I had learned to live with in silence. His first love, the woman who had been part of his life long before me, the woman whose absence had left scars so deep that I sometimes wondered if he had ever truly healed. She had been gone for years, but I knew she lived in the recesses of his memory, haunting the edges of his heart. I never asked too many questions because I feared the answers. And now she was here, stepping gracefully out of the crowd, her hair cascading over her shoulders, her face glowing under the lights as if the entire room existed for her alone. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My heart stopped. I wanted to believe this was a cruel trick, some misunderstanding. But then, before my disbelieving eyes, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He sank to one knee. The room erupted in shocked whispers, people covering their mouths, eyes wide. I felt frozen, as though someone had rooted me to the floor. My breath caught in my throat, my fingers trembling as I instinctively touched the ring that encircled my own finger, a ring he had given me with promises of forever. And yet, forever seemed to have expired without warning. He looked up at her, his voice thick with emotion. On my birthday, I want to start a new chapter of my life, with you. The words sliced through me. My chest constricted, and the world tilted. Every laugh, every memory, every kiss we had shared crashed against me like a cruel tide, and suddenly, it was all meaningless. My mind screamed at me to do something, to shout, to demand an explanation, but my body betrayed me with silence. I couldn't move. Around me, the air buzzed with disbelief. Some eyes darted toward me, pity already forming in their gazes. Others looked away, unwilling to witness the humiliation unfolding in real time. My world, so carefully built, had shattered in front of dozens of witnesses, and I had no shield to protect myself. Slowly, my fingers found the engagement ring. The diamond that once sparkled with hope now felt heavy, like a stone dragging me under. I slid it off my finger, the cool metal brushing against my skin one last time before leaving it bare. My hand shook, but I clenched my jaw to steady myself. Without a word, without drawing attention to myself, I placed the ring on the nearest table. It landed with a soft sound, almost drowned out by the cheers that erupted behind me as she accepted his proposal. Applause filled the room, deafening, cruel. My ears rang as though the sound itself was mocking me. I turned away, each step toward the door an act of defiance against the pain that threatened to consume me. I would not give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. The door opened, and the cool night air rushed against my face. My lungs expanded for the first time in what felt like hours. I stepped outside, the weight of the betrayal pressing against me but no longer suffocating. My heels clicked softly against the pavement as I walked away from the glowing hall, leaving behind the laughter, the applause, and the man I had once loved. Tears burned at the edges of my eyes, but I refused to let them fall, not yet. Not where anyone could see. Each step was a goodbye. Goodbye to him. Goodbye to the life I thought we were building. Goodbye to the illusion that love alone could erase the shadows of the past. Behind me, the celebration continued. Ahead of me, the darkness stretched wide and endless. But even in that darkness, I felt something unfamiliar stir inside me. A fragile strength. A whisper that maybe, just maybe, this ending wasn't my ruin. Maybe it was the quiet beginning of something new. And so, I kept walking. Quietly, alone, but with dignity intact. The days that followed felt like drifting through a fog. I woke up each morning in my apartment with a hollow ache in my chest, the imprint of the ring still visible on my finger even though the jewelry itself was gone. My bed felt too large, too empty, my phone too quiet without his good morning messages. The silence was suffocating at first, wrapping itself around me like an unshakable weight. I moved through routines automatically, brewing coffee, brushing my hair, heading to work, but each task felt detached, like I was watching myself from the outside. People whispered. I knew they did. Friends who had been at the party called me, some with pity, some with outrage. How could he humiliate you like that? I can't believe you just walked out quietly. You didn't even say anything. Their voices were full of disbelief, as though I had somehow failed by not putting up a fight. But I didn't need to fight. Fighting for someone who had already chosen another wasn't bravery, it was desperation. And I refused to be desperate for love that had never truly been mine. Still, their words cut. Late at night, when the world grew quiet, I replayed the scene over and over again in my mind, torturing myself with the details I couldn't erase. The way his eyes had shone for her. The trembling sincerity in his voice. The applause that followed, drowning out the sound of my breaking heart. I thought of the countless nights I had sat by his side when he was too tired to keep going, the sacrifices I had made, the little surprises I had prepared just to see him smile. Had it all meant nothing? Or worse, had it only been a placeholder until she came back? The anger came later, simmering beneath the grief. It wasn't explosive, it was quiet, sharp, and steady, like a knife cutting through a rope I'd been tied to. Slowly, the pain turned into a realization. He hadn't betrayed me in that moment. The betrayal had begun long before, in the way he had held a piece of his heart for someone else while pretending to give me all of it. I had loved fully, while he had loved partially. And that truth, as bitter as it was, set me free. I began to rebuild, piece by fragile piece. I immersed myself in work, volunteering for projects, staying late at the office just to keep my mind occupied. I bought new sheets for my bed, rearranged the furniture in my apartment, even started painting again, something I hadn't done in years. Every small change reminded me that life could move forward, even when I felt stuck. Some nights I still cried, but I no longer felt like I was drowning. The tears were cleansing, washing away what no longer served me. Weeks later, fate decided to test me. I had gone to a cafe near my office for lunch, a cozy place with warm wooden tables and the smell of fresh bread filling the air. I ordered my usual coffee and sandwich, ready to settle into a corner with a book, when I saw them. They sat by the window, sunlight spilling over their table. Her hand rested lightly on his, her smile confident, almost smug. He laughed louder than I remembered him ever laughing with me, as though he was trying to prove something to the world, or maybe to himself. My stomach twisted, but I refused to let it show. I walked to the counter, collected my order, and turned to leave. His eyes met mine then, just for a moment. I saw it, the flicker of guilt, hesitation, something unsettled. But it was gone almost instantly, replaced by the forced brightness of his laugh as she leaned closer. She noticed me too, her smile tightening with a triumph that told me she knew exactly who I was. For a heartbeat, I considered saying something. I imagined walking over, placing my hand on his shoulder, and asking, Do you remember whose ring you placed on a table the night you forgot your promises? But I didn't. Words would have given them power over me, and I had already taken mine back. So I walked past their table, head high, coffee in hand, not a single word leaving my lips. I could feel their eyes on me, but I didn't turn around. For the first time since that night, I realized the wound in my chest no longer bled. It had scarred, and scars don't reopen when brushed. Life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. One evening, as I packed up my files at the office, a colleague approached me. He had always been kind, a quiet presence in the background, offering help without asking for credit. I had never thought of him as anything beyond a friend. But that night, something was different in his expression. He lingered at my desk, hesitant. "You know," he said softly, "I've watched you these past few weeks. You've been stronger than anyone I've ever seen. Most people would have broken. But you carry yourself with dignity. And you deserve someone who sees that, someone who sees you." His words disarmed me. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. I had spent so long convincing myself that I wasn't enough for the man I thought I loved, that hearing someone acknowledge my worth felt almost foreign. I didn't respond right away, but something in me shifted that night. I went home, sat by my window with the city lights sprawled out beneath me, and let his words sink in. Maybe love wasn't about grand gestures, public proposals, or the kind of passion that burned so hot it eventually consumed itself. Maybe it was about quiet loyalty, about someone who stayed when things weren't easy, about being seen in the small, everyday ways. I thought back to that birthday night. He had chosen his first love, a symbol of his past, a nostalgia he couldn't let go of. But in choosing her, he had freed me. Because when I took off that ring and placed it on the table, I had unknowingly chosen myself. That realization was liberating. For the first time, I didn't feel like a victim of betrayal. I felt like a woman who had walked away from someone who couldn't value her, and that was something to be proud of. Time passed, and little by little, life opened up again. I laughed more. I reconnected with friends I had neglected. I allowed myself to imagine a future not bound by someone else's uncertainty. And though I didn't know where it would lead, I knew one thing with clarity: I would never again settle for being someone's second choice. The night he proposed to her was supposed to break me. Instead, it became the night I was reborn. Because sometimes, the quietest exits carry the loudest strength. And sometimes, leaving without a word is the most powerful thing you can do. I had walked out of his life silently, but with every step, I had been walking back into my own. And that was the beginning of everything.